Hello everybody and welcome to the Tima Ballers podcast. And in today's special episode, I've got a very close friend of mine, Emin, who also happens to be an Arsenal fan. Emin, welcome to the podcast.
Indeed. Thank you for having me, Mr. Tima Baller. How are you doing on this fine day?
I'm doing well. I mean, look, we just watched Chelsea absolutely bottle it. Liverpool with a W, Arsenal with a W. We're basically top of the league. I mean, that's a good feeling, good start to the season.
Indeed, Arsenal with a stunning, spectacular victory over Wolves yesterday. Saka, absolutely brilliant, scored an absolutely phenomenal goal. And Havertz as well, the world-class striker, absolutely stunning at the 9 position. And a lot of interesting stuff as well. Gabriel Jesus getting,
Yes, I believe, who was it? Bellegarde. Yeah, Bellegarde might be investigated after the game for some certain actions he did. But here we are on the Team of Ballers podcast. Obviously, it's very good to have you here.
Indeed,
it's always
very
good to bring. As I said, this podcast is about the fans. We're about fan opinion. We want to hear from proper fans. No mainstream media, no vested interest, no commercial deals. We're just fans, aren't we?
Yes,
we're just fans here to have a conversation. So, I mean, let's first begin with the obvious question: is you are an Arsenal fan?
Of course, man, best team in the world.
What made you support Arsenal? What about Arsenal?
Well, we have the famous story. Indeed, my journey to being an Arsenal fan started in this very house.
It did indeed.
We watched 2 years ago, the 2022 season, Arsenal versus Liverpool. I absolutely fell in love with their style of play, smashing Liverpool that game. Then I went on to watch the, the Arsenal documentary. All for Nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely stunning documentary.
Yeah.
Showed the whole process of Arsenal. And man, just fell in love with it. Then I went on a stadium tour.
I remember that.
Saw the Emirates, absolutely beautiful place, the real theatre of dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, never looked back. Watched most games, watched the highlights, and man, Arsenal, best team in the world.
Yeah, I remember that game where you so-called battered us. It was actually 2-2. But interesting. I remember that trip to Arsenal Emirates Stadium. I think it was an interesting experience. It's obviously, I can't deny as a Liverpool fan, it's a good stadium. It's very decent. You definitely feel the power of the club. And I respect Arsenal. I think
it's the North London spirit.
Yeah, I think it's a respectable club. I think it's a very, it's a good club. But let's go a bit broader now, right? Let's talk about, so obviously we are football fans. And we are about football in general. So what do you have to say to people who are not really into football? Because you were in this position a few years ago where you weren't really into football. I was. And now you are into football.
Well, I'm a sports fan in general. I like mixed martial arts. That's my favourite sport, obviously. But football is definitely a close second. But look, I would say a lot of people, they don't watch club football because they don't really understand how the clubs work, man. They just see some badge, Liverpool, what's that, Arsenal, oh, what's that, Cannon, Spurs, some random chicken. They might not understand how it works, but if you truly dig deep and find out the rivalries, the history, the legends, the players, then, man, I think anyone can fall in love with the sport.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think with football, the beauty of the sport is the emotion behind it. Like, when you watch a game like Arsenal and Spurs, it's not just a game of football. You are talking about decades of rivalry, of hatred, of emotion, of passion. And it really comes across, even when we watch the Chelsea City game today, I think it's more than just a game, right? It's like you feel history in it because you are making history. There are big moments in football.
Of course, man. I feel like a lot of people, I have a friend that does this as well. He watches international football because then he can kind of relate to the countries. But I told him, if you really look into the history of the clubs, it's even better than international football. It's better. Because that's the only thing that they do is play football. There's nothing else. Just every week going at it in the Premier League, and it's a great sport.
And honestly, when you get into football, you really begin to love it. I honestly think that Liverpool is a part of my identity. When I went to Liverpool, right, I honestly feel like this is a special place. You don't just feel it's a club which you like. It's a club which you truly love. It's a part of you. I almost feel like you are destined to support a club.
Yeah.
These fans of clubs, they honestly represent the clubs. Spurs fans, they have a typical kind of behavior. Arsenal fans behave in a certain way. Liverpool fans, United fans. It really is more than just clubs. It's really about personality, isn't it?
Yeah. I'll say supporting the club, just being loyal, it gives you a sense of community as well. It gives you the added identity to yourself. Imagine you just have nothing going for your life, but all of a sudden you find a club and that's your new purpose, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and obviously, like, you became an Arsenal fan, and I bet you now can relate to it. You can obviously relate to even to London. I bet you probably feel closer to London now.
Yeah, North London especially. Like, man, when you go to the Emirates, when you go around there, there's even like barber shops called Gunners Barbers and like Arsenal Corner Shop. It's just like the spirit of the team embodies the whole area, man. It's just different sense of community that.
And we can always talk about the fact, the social benefits of football. Like, honestly, I used to have problems finding conversation with people. Like, when you meet someone, it's a bit hard just to find a conversation. But I'm telling you, if you meet someone and you both like football, that's enough for 1 hour worth of conversation.
Indeed.
And it really like stands out. Like, I remember I was in a taxi once and the guy supported Arsenal. And we literally spent an hour talking about Arsenal.
Yeah.
I cannot think of any other topic where you can just sit down with a completely random person and talk about football. And it really unites you because you love the same thing in the end, don't we?
That's true indeed. Mr. Tima, very well said.
It is indeed. But now let's obviously kind of focus on your club, Arsenal. So obviously we know that Arsenal, last season was a close battle.
Yeah.
Now, there's one term that has been used towards you, right? And you have been called bottlers in the past. Now, I personally would not call you bottlers for last season. I think that's a very unfair question. It's not like it's an unfair statement because realistically, right, you pushed the City till the line, you got 89 points.
Yeah.
Is it really fair to call you bottlers?
Well, you know what they say. When you're up, they will hate on you. But we can look at the fact. We beat every Big Six team.
You did.
Pretty significantly.
Yep.
Including Liverpool, including Chelsea,
Yep.
Spurs as well. But, as you know, the team with 115 charges, you know what they do. I don't really have to go into that too much in detail. But next season, hopefully they get prosecuted, get sent back down to League 2, and we'll take what's rightfully ours.
Just for the record, this is not my official stance, but obviously passionate words from the Arsenal fan. Yeah, I don't think you are bottlers. I think you truly fought till the end. You fought well in the Champions League. And ultimately, look, it comes down to fine margins. When we lost the title to City by 1 point, it's not a case of bottling. It's just a matter of you both went at it. Imagine two phenomenal 100-meter sprinters make a run at it, and in the end, one of them wins by 1/10,000 of a second. Yeah. Nobody bottled it. It was just two very, very strong teams having a go at each other.
Indeed, it was.
But overall, what do you feel about last season? Like, obviously, I think this is a step up for you, isn't it? Yeah, you went from first, you had these 8th place seasons where you did very poorly. Then there was your building season where you finished 5th.
Yeah.
Then you had a season where you finished 2nd and you finished, I think, 83 points where you fell away at the end.
Yeah.
And now you've had this push season. Like, are you happy with this progression?
Well, looking at our history, coming back from the relegation, we were battling relegation a couple of seasons ago. And coming through 2nd, we had some ups and downs. Of course, Fulham, the Blonde Saka era wasn't the best of our performances. But I would say the main thing for us where we slipped away was the pressure from the Champions League. Getting to Bayern in the quarterfinals, again, controversial, I might have some opinions, but I thought it was a penalty at the end, but I don't know. But yeah, the main thing was the pressure from the Champions League, man. And we didn't have the squad depth. We didn't have enough rotation players to accommodate the fatigue from, say, Saka or Havertz, always being up there striking in tough games as in the Champions League against Bayern, Porto. But yeah, I'll say we also did have the most clean sheets last season, and we had the highest goal difference. So
you did.
Very, very happy with that.
Yeah, honestly, I look back at there was a moment when you lost to Fulham.
Yeah.
And then you had a few more games, and I think you had the Liverpool game. And it was a point where you were 5 points behind us. So it was a case of if you lose to us at home, that's it. Like, you're not catching up.
Yeah.
And you just lost to us in the FA Cup as well at home. So that victory over us, that 3-1 victory.
Beautiful performance from
I
us.
think that was a symbolic victory because it's almost like that's when you really stamped down that, no, we're not going to give up.
Yeah.
And then you went on that phenomenal run where you scored. You destroyed Sheffield 5-0, West Ham 6-0, then Chelsea 5-0. I almost feel like you were an unstoppable combined harvester plowing through the league.
Indeed, we were. That Chelsea performance, a personal favourite, a personal highlight of the season. You know what they say, 60 million down the drain.
Yeah, I think it's just like, I almost feel like because you went through to the Champions League quarter-final, that's why you lost. Because ultimately, when you had to play Bayern, those two tough games, a very exhausting game, very tiring games, they were very close games. I'll give you that one. The first game was 2-2. both sides could have won it. As you said, controversial penalty at the end.
Yeah.
The second game as well, very, very close game. Kimmich got the winner. But honestly, I think Arsenal could have made it through. I think it was a game of fine margins. Literally, one kick goes slightly a different way. And I think Arsenal are in it. And then it's probably very agonizing that you lost to Bayern. And then you had that Aston Villa game sandwiched in between. And it's just unfortunate because obviously you had to use your first team for the Bayern games.
Yeah.
And then you had the Aston Villa game home. And you unfortunately had to resort to measures like putting Havertz in midfield, which really undermined. I think that undermined probably the whole season.
The momentum really stopped from there, and then the last game against Everton, a truly sad one. I remember watching it. Havertz crying at the end, a real heartbreaker right there.
Yeah, I think it's obviously like with me, right? We technically bottled the league last year, but it doesn't feel that bad because we fell away so much. That realistically, even with all the VAR decisions, with all the ref robberies, I know realistically we were not good enough to win the Premier League last season. But when you lose by 2 points, it's a different feeling of frustration.
Yeah.
Because 1 goal, 2 more points, and you're up in goal difference, you win the league. 1 goal.
Yeah. I saw the league trophy with the red bands at the Emirates Stadium, and I just hoped. But you know what? Next year we come back stronger, new signings, fresh team. Ready to beat the 115 Chargers.
Well, actually, then, speaking of the next season and other signings, right? If you were appointed manager of Arsenal, you are Emin Arteta, who would you want to sign? Now, let's be realistic. So don't go with something like Mbappe or Vinicius Jr. Let's be realistic. Who do you think realistically, or which positions at least, do you want to target?
Well, everyone knows we have some holes in our game, especially up top, including the squad depth for the left wing and the striker.
Yep.
And me, might be controversial to the viewers of this podcast, but I was supporting Spain in the Euros. I saw how they shined.
You did.
And especially one guy from that team, Nico Williams. He doesn't play for the best team right now, but I saw he was coming to London to have some communications with Chelsea, Arsenal. I believe if we have him in our team, feed him, he feeds the Havertz, and that's just a match made in heaven.
Yeah, I think hypothetically, it is a possible signing. It's very difficult because he signed a new contract, I think. But the thing with, I think, Nico Williams is, I would probably say right wing is a bigger problem. Because the thing with Arsenal, right? I said it on my last episode. Your starting 11 can probably challenge City. But your B team cannot. So the problem comes down to where you take off Saka and you haven't got anyone there. You got Reece Nelson and Nketiah. Yeah. And that's probably where City and Liverpool have got the edge on you. It's not the starting 11. It's actually the bench players where I think you can improve. So maybe a backup right winger. You know, someone like, obviously you can't sign him, but someone like Harvey Elliott who can play right wing, who can play attacking. Would you say that's a fair assessment?
Maybe. But again, a lot of people are saying this as well. The striker. We got Havertz now, who I think is an absolutely world-class, phenomenal striker. Did very well for Germany.
He did.
The Scotland game, I think 5-0. That was a very good performance. But, you know, of course, this guy, he's been on the radar. Osimhen. Very good. Very, very good striker, I think. He would do very well for us. And, I think that's someone that we should definitely look out for in the near future.
Yeah, I think because, let's be honest, so Kai Havertz had 13 goals and 7 assists in the Premier League last season. And he didn't even start all the games. Yeah. Let's make a prediction. How many goals does Kai Havertz score this season, assuming full fitness?
Look, we had him a lot in the midfield as well, so that probably...
Yeah, exactly. That does obviously diminish his goal scoring ability. But I think
19.
I think I'll go with 16.
I want to be optimistic and go with 19.
I think 16 is true because one thing we know about Kai Havertz is at Chelsea, he didn't score many goals.
But that's Chelsea.
But something changed about him because he came in, right? He was made fun of. Do you remember that one game where Arsenal gave him a penalty to score because he was so bad? They called him they called him like James Bond 007 because he had 7 games, 0 goals, 0 assists. But then he scores the penalty, and then after that he starts delivering. And in the second half of the season, I almost feel like he was one of your most important players. He scored that winner against Brentford. He was scoring winners.
Yeah. I saw a couple of the Arsenal fans saying they'll never celebrate a goal that Kai Havertz scores. And I'm just like, I think, just look, just wait. Just trust in Arteta and he'll get it done. He saw the potential in Havertz. He stole him from Chelsea. and he made him into a world-class striker that can score in big games in the Champions League and in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think obviously I've got to compliment Arteta because I think nobody apart from Arsenal fans believe in Havertz, and yet here he is. But then apart from attack, I would say probably midfield is a good idea.
Definitely.
Obviously, you are on the verge of signing Mikel Merino, the 28-year-old Spanish international. Again, good player, good signing, good price. What was it, £17 million?
17, yeah.
Rumored fee. I think that's a good signing.
Yeah. Well, I feel like our midfield really holds up the team. I would say, maybe some people say City is the best, but of course I'm going to say Arsenal, Odegaard, Rice and Partey really, really hold up the team. But if I want to be really optimistic and maybe throw something out there, a young talent, a German talent, Musiala. I think he'll hold up the team very, very well.
I mean, yeah, I think probably one thing I'd say about Arsenal is you've obviously got Odegaard, who's a sensational player, but I'm just thinking one more top-class midfielder and you're all set. Like one more talent and you're set. And maybe left back, maybe.
Left back, look, this is my ideas for left back. Of course, we signed Calafiori, but you know how Arteta works. He signed Ben White as a centre back and turned him into the best right back in the league. But you know he can do the same. I know he can do the same with Calafiori and turn him into a phenomenal left back. And we also have Timber as well coming up.
Yep,
he's making appearances, and I feel like that's a very good replacement.
Yeah, I think. Would you probably say maybe a more traditional left back would suit you more? Though perhaps someone, I'm not saying Cancelo, but someone like a traditional left back like Robertson or Cancelo. Maybe that's what Arsenal are missing out.
I feel like because our centre back pairing is just splendid, just amazing.
It is.
If I do say so myself, best in the world.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you do have the best centre back partnership. I agree with that.
So
I really do.
And as well, I'm very, very liking how Ben White is connecting up with Saka, feeding it up, and Saka's getting those goals.
Yep. So actually kind of like linking to the question of obviously your squad, who would you say is your most important player? Like if you were to single out one person there.
Well, this might sound a bit generic, but I have to go with Odegaard. The captain, of course, but also a very, very important playmaker. And also, just as I mentioned, Ben White as well.
Yeah.
Phenomenal player, phenomenal right back, best right back in the league in my opinion. Connecting with Saka as well, just that beautiful connection, feeding it up, and Saka absolutely scoring a phenomenal screamer.
Yeah, I think the thing is with Odegaard, if you look at his stats in the Premier League, it's 8 goals and 8 assists, which doesn't sound too glamorous, I believe. But when you look at his contribution in terms of the leadership, threading those passes, I mean, there's a reason why Gary Neville selected him as the player of the season. Yeah. Like, it really shows you, I think he's a very talented player, and he's actually kind of gone under the radar, hasn't he? Because in all this talk of Jamal Musiala, Jude Bellingham, Cole Palmer, we never really think of someone like Odegaard, don't we? Which is unfair because he's brilliant, I think. He's absolutely brilliant.
And it's also the caliber of goals. He's not a tapping guy like some players like Haaland or maybe Nicholas Jackson, as I just saw, but he scores phenomenal goals. Just 10 out of 10 goals.
Yeah, I think that's a good point also, is when we think about goals, it's not just a stat, it's also what kind of goals you're scoring. And I think Odegaard is a very intelligent football player. Like, you know, in football, you've got footballing IQ. Like, this guy's smart. He knows what pass to play. He knows how to thread the ball into Saka. And as a Liverpool fan, I can almost compare him to Roberto Firmino because he was also that glue in the team who would keep the whole team together. Doesn't score many goals, but nonetheless, his contribution is massive.
And also another thing, he's not afraid to shoot, which is problems that we found during the Fulham, the West Ham times where we had Saka just being afraid to shoot. We had Havertz being afraid to shoot, but then Odegaard really probably changed that in training. He told them they need to shoot, and he's been the one that leads by example.
Well, speaking of example, who would you say is your favourite Arsenal player? Let's start with current Arsenal player, your favourite player. Because I think obviously you Arsenal fans, you really like Saka. Yeah. You like even Havertz. Yeah. You like obviously William Saliba. Well, who would you say is your number one player?
Well, I'm going to go for a more underground route. I'm going to say Leandro Trossard. Right now, he has just been a game changer. He's not a player that comes on straight away. He's not always part of the starting 11. But when Arteta subs him on, you just know that ball is going straight to the back of the net. He's absolutely brilliant on the left wing, and he's just been a very good replacement to Martinelli. And where Martinelli has failed, he's filled in the shoes. There were big shoes to fill from the 22-23 season. Martinelli going on a phenomenal run, but sadly he's dropped off. But it doesn't matter. Trossard has come and replaced him and been maybe even better.
Yeah, obviously, Trossard last season, 16 league goals. And it's actually interesting because you and Chelsea both tried to go for Mudryk.
Yeah.
And Chelsea got the better of you. And obviously, typical Chelsea is like, we got the better of you. We got him. And then you went for Trossard. And what a massive difference. You paid, £30 million for a player who is now been one of your best finishers. Yeah. He's so clinical. Like, every time he's got the ball, he goes in the back of the net. Honestly, he's a brilliant player. But now, obviously, the current players are phenomenal. But who would you say is your favourite Arsenal legend?
Well, this may seem generic, but there's only really one answer for this.
It is indeed.
Thierry Henry, man.
Yes.
The greatest of all time in the Premier League. Doesn't matter. Ronaldo. Who's Ronaldo? When you have Thierry Henry, just phenomenal player. Do I have to say his stats? Invincible season, never been replicated in the Premier League. Premier League winner, World Cup winner. Just absolutely phenomenal player. And also his legacy continues to this day. He recently coached France's Olympic team to a silver medal, only losing to Spain, which is the European champions. Man, how can you hate Thierry Henry? Just a phenomenal player, phenomenal guy. Great personality, got on the TV show.
Yeah, the CBS Sports, Galazzo. What a show that is. What a show. Honestly,
amazing show.
I'm actually quite skeptical of the mainstream media, like Sky Sports and TNT.
Yeah.
But honestly, you look at that partnership of Thierry Henry, Michael Richards, Kate Abdo, and Jamie Carragher. Like, seriously, think of a more iconic team of people, of just phenomenal, isn't it?
Just brightens up the Champions League. Just really adds that added personality to maybe some boring analysis.
Exactly.
And makes it just swallowable.
Yeah, and I guess I sort of, obviously I'm not trying to recreate CBC Sports Galazzo here, but naturally what I'm trying to do essentially with this podcast is to create a podcast which is not about this complicated football analysis. We want something simple that people understand, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because people oftentimes want to listen to some simple content. I don't always want to listen to a complicated, sophisticated, tactical analysis.
Yeah, and they just add the funny parts and they explain, they gave it predictions. It's everything you want and more.
Yeah, well, all right then. In that case, the big moment, speaking of predictions.
Yeah.
Arsenal, 2 times in a row you came second place. You've been called bottless. Opposing fans have made fun of you. City fans have laughed at you. But Arsenal, do you think you can win the league this season?
Well, first of all, they may make fun of us, but we beat them. That's simple.
That's a good point.
Look, of course you can win the league. We should have won it. If it wasn't for those charges, if it wasn't for that VAR, if it wasn't for all the things that they do, the people that must not be named, Man City. But, we prove we can get far in the best league in the world, the Champions League, get to the quarterfinals, arguably beat Bayern, controversial, and had a great success in the Premier League, as I said, clean sheets, goal difference. But I would say we just need to focus on one game at a time. Just take our time. Don't look ahead too much. Don't underestimate our opponents. Because we might have underestimated Fulham and that cost us. We might have underestimated West Ham and that cost us. But, look, our trophy cabinet will increase by the end of the year. Can't say the same about Spurs.
That is a good point. And honestly, I think you have a point to you've got to take things seriously.
Yeah.
Never make the mistake of not taking things seriously. Like, seriously, you play someone like Fulham and you think, easy game. But no, they'll beat you. Because I think Mark Goldbridge said it very, very well, that Fulham epitomizes the nature of the Premier League. It's a team who you can go and play and they'll beat you. But then they'll go lose to Luton Town. Like, that's what the Premier League is all about, isn't it? Is the fact that you never know what's going to happen. That's why, obviously, I think it's kind of a fact. The Premier League is the best league in the world. We've got the toppers, the best teams there are in Europe. And even someone like Bournemouth and Fulham and West Ham, very, very strong teams.
Well, I say, next year, this year.
You said it next year.
Next year and this year.
Next year.
Next year and this year.
That is a key.
No. Next year and this year, mark my words, we will lift that Premier League trophy. It will have the red bands, not the blue. And who knows? We already won the Emirates Cup. Just trust me, many more to come.
I can definitely agree that it'll have red ribbons on it, 100%. And Arne Slot will lift that trophy.
Oh, no.
You know, Premier League in the first season of Arne Slot. What a wonderful story that would be. No signings and a Premier League. Like, what a symbol that would be.
No signings. Coldplay's leaving. Joe Gomez. Very unfortunate looking for the Scousers. Can't say the same about us. We're looking up. Got some good signings. Calafiori, Marinos to come. And who knows, maybe a striker later on.
Well, you know, I wish Arsenal all the best. I said I respect you guys. And yeah, I actually wish you all the best. I genuinely wish you all the best. And it was a fantastic episode. I think it's good that we finish on a note of positivity and optimism that Manchester City will finally be beaten. Obviously, nothing personal against them, but we do want some variety.
Now it's personal.
It's personal for the Arsenal fan. I understand the agony. I understand the agony of two seasons ruined by Manchester City. Understandable. I understand the pain. We, as Liverpool fans, we felt it already before. You know, we remember that season where we had 97 points and we didn't win. We remember that when we bottled it against Chelsea. You know, Steven Gerrard slipped. We remember that season where we drew Spurs at Anfield and we also didn't win the league. So I sympathise with Arsenal and I hope that you really do have a good season.
Well, I wish Liverpool the best as well.
Thank you.
But unfortunately, it will be second place for the Scousers.
Well, that will be a good season, actually. That'll be a good season. Thank you for coming on, Mr. Emin.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Tima Baller. What can I say? The best podcast in the game right now.
Thank you. I will be glad to welcome you back again later on.
When we win the league?
Even earlier, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Even earlier on. But yeah, I wish you all the best and thank you for listening, everyone.